What's going on, my fellow rock and rollers? Now, this is a story that came out pretty recently in a new book by filmmaker and photographer Andrew Bennett. Now, according to Bennett, guitarist Eddie Van Halen once pulled a gun on Limp Bizkit frontman Fred Durst. Why did he do this? Well, you're going to find out in today's video. Now, Bennett recently released a coffee table book called Eruption in the Canyon, 212 Days and Nights with the Genius of Eddie Van Halen, which chronicles the photographer's time filming the band in the studio between 2004 and 2007. And Bennett was working on a documentary about Van Halen, but once his filming had concluded, apparently the band wasn't happy with the footage, and it ran into a bunch of legal problems, and is most likely sitting in a vault somewhere. We'll talk more about the fate of the documentary at the end of the video. Now, Bennett claimed in his book that both Fred Durst and Eddie Van Halen would meet each other shortly after Limp Bizkit guitarist Wes Borland had quit the band, and the group was looking for a new guitarist. Durst went as far as to go on Howard Stern's show to audition guitarists over the phone, but he had no luck. Now, as reported by Ultimate Classic Rock, the book claimed that Fred Durst and Eddie Van Halen attended the same party and were introduced to each other by a record label executive. The executive suggested that they should work together, to which Durst responded, "That would be hilarious. The greatest guitar player ever plays with the worst band ever." But Eddie would respond by saying, "F it, let's jam." Now, shortly after the meeting, the pair set up a jam session at Durst's house in Beverly Hills, and shortly after the jam session started, Durst and his buddies started smoking pot, and Eddie wasn't too impressed and abruptly left, leaving his guitar and amps behind. Bennett would go on to claim it was like being a scholar amongst kindergartners. Now, the following day, Eddie would call up Durst to arrange to pick up his gear, but the guitarist had no luck getting in touch with the Limp Bizkit frontman, so Eddie took matters into his own hands. Apparently, Eddie owned an assault vehicle he bought at a military auction and drove it over to Durst's home. And Bennett would claim in his book that he, referring to Eddie, got out wearing no shirt, his hair in a samurai bun on top of his head, his jeans held up with a strand of rope, and combat boots held together by duct tape, and he had a gun in his hand, Bennett writes. Now, Bennett would quote Van Halen during this instance in the book saying, "I put my gun to that stupid red hat of his, and I said, 'Where's my stuff, mother effer?' That guy just turned to one of his employees and starts yelling at him to grab my stuff." And Bennett would go on to claim Eddie Van Halen stood on the front lawn of a residential home in Beverly Hills in broad daylight, smoking a cigarette, while holding a gun on Fred Durst as he went back and forth from the house to the assault vehicle lugging amps and guitars. So whatever happened to that documentary that Van Halen was working on between 2004 and 2007? Well, following Bennett's time with the band, Eddie wasn't happy with the documentarian's work, and they would end up in court over who owns the footage in 2018. In addition to that, the guitarist accused Bennett of trying to release the documentary without the band's permission, and the footage mostly consisted of the band rehearsing with Eddie's son Wolfgang Van Halen and his brother Alex Van Halen shortly after Michael Anthony left the group. So that does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And as always, if you have suggestions for future topics, let me know in the comment section below. Take care.